regular if you just check back at, he's rambling too much. Rambling. It's the Van Gogh F10. Stop rambling. Hello. I have a minor foot injury and we're in lockdown, so I can't really go anywhere or do anything. So we're gonna go over some wild camping gear because I literally can't do anything else. I'm still really new to wild camping. I've only done five wild camps so far, which isn't very many, but it's enough for me to kind of start to get an idea of what I can improve on going forward and whatnot. So I'm just going to talk about the gear I've used so far, how that gear was from a beginner's perspective, and how those camps went, like what mistakes I made, what I can do better in the future, etc, etc. This is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the gear. I'm not going to go into like loads of detail and technical specifications. This is just stuff I've used, how I felt about it, and some general details about each item. Just so you're aware. If you're interested in outdoors content, then feel free to subscribe to the channel, and without further ado, I'll get into the content of the video. First things first, the biggest part of going camping, I guess, is your shelter, because you need it to shelter you. So I'm going to talk about the shelter systems I've used so far first. The first three... Shit, is it three? So the first 3 camps I used a tarp and bivvy, which possibly wasn't the best decision as a beginner, but it was fun and I learned a lot and I fell in love with using the tarp and bivvy. So I feel like it was a good way to start out for me, but possibly one that you need to do quite a bit of research into before committing to. If you are a beginner and you want to get into wild camping, it is safer and easier to start off with a tent. So the tarp I used for those 3 camps, is a DD Hammocks 2.8 by 1.5. I don't know if that's focusing. Anyway, you get the gist. So it's a rectangular tarp. It's not very big, so it doesn't provide sort of definite massive area of coverage, but it is quite versatile, and I usually have it set up in a little sort of cave configuration. I'll link videos and insert clips while I'm talking. It's 450 grams excluding pegs, and it does come with a full quota of pegs and guidelines and stuff, and it's got loads of tie out points. So as someone who's completely new to all of this, that was super useful, because you just got loads of options for how you can set it up. There's not really anything you can do amazingly wrong, to be honest. Like, even if you have a really weird setup, it'll probably be okay. And yeah, I've enjoyed using this tarp. It's had a bit of a battering already and it seems to be coping absolutely fine. It's been rained on a bit. It's not been out in any really drastic weather, but it seems to be coping all right. So yeah, I've enjoyed using that tarp. To keep my tarp up, I've just been using a bog standard trekking pole. I have a set that's second-hand, got them off my grandma because she doesn't use them anymore. So that's a point when you're getting into camping for the first time. You don't necessarily have to buy a bunch of brand new kit right off the bat. You can just ask friends and family and see if anybody's got any stuff you can borrow before you go spending money. So yeah, normally trekking poles can be a bit pricey. If you're going really fancy, you can pick them up for a lot cheaper, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it was 20 to 40 quid that I didn't have to spend, so it's worth just asking relatives what they've got lying around. Third part of the shelter system for the tarp and bivvy is obviously the bivvy. I've just used a Highlander Kestrel bivvy bag. It's not very fancy. It's basically a glorified bin bag, but it's got a 4,000 millimeter hydrostatic head, and it's fairly breathable. It is pretty weird to get used to sleeping in it though, I have to say. I'm quite a fidgety sleeper, and trying to move my arms and stuff around, it gets a bit weird when you're in a bivvy bag. But I mean, it's been fine. It's kept the weather off me enough. The foot box gets a bit damp, I think just because of condensation building up down by my horrible sweaty feet. But yeah, no real complaints, to be honest. It's not the most comfortable, but then it only cost me 33 quid, so I'm not really expecting miracles from that kind of gear. So back to the kind of when you're starting out and not spending loads of money, the DD tarp was again like £32 or something, so it's really not particularly expensive. The bivvy was, yeah, about 33, and then the poles were free, but you can pick them up for, if you just literally want something to keep your tarp up with, you can pick them up for not too much money. So you can get a tarp and bivvy shelter system for less than 100 quid really easily. And yeah, it's a nice versatile way of going about it, particularly nice in the summer. You're open to the elements, you can look at the stars at night, you can watch the sunset easily. Yeah, it's good. I've enjoyed using it. The second shelter system that I have used on one camp is just the bivvy by itself, which was an interesting experience. I'm looking forward to trying that again at some point. Definitely something to pick on days where you know it's not going to absolutely weigh it down on you. To pick nicer weather for your first bivvy camp. Don't try and be brave and go out in a storm. It's not worth it. It doesn't prove anything. But yeah, if you can find like a nice, fairly clear night for your first bivvy camp, then it could be a really nice experience. You've got full exposure to the stars and the sky, and yeah, it's nice stuff. For my 5th wild camp, I probably should have started my wild camping experience off with a tent, but I didn't because I'm sensible. So my 5th camp I did with the Vango, I've forgotten what this tent's called. So my 5th camp I used the Vango F10 Helium UL1. I don't remember what order the words go in, but that's the general gist. I'll put it on the screen and I'll link the camp at the top somewhere. So that was my first time camping in a tent in several years, actually. Before that camp, I think the last time I'd camped in a tent was Latitude Festival, like 4 years ago or something. So yeah, nice tent. I enjoyed using it. It's lightweight. It's not the lightest, but it is pretty lightweight. It's not super cheap. It's about 250 quid if you buy it new. I did find it for 180 because I'm a bargain hunter. It's a pretty compact tent. This hasn't got the poles in it at the minute because I usually pack those separately, but it can squish right down, so it's pretty small. And obviously the benefits of using a tent are it doesn't have the same amount of thought you have to put into it with setting up a tarp and bivvy, because you don't have to think so carefully about campsite selection, and you don't have to worry about being open to the elements at all. So it's a much more beginner friendly option using a tent. The UL1 probably isn't what I would realistically pick as a beginner wild camping tent. I just like the look of it and I grabbed it, so it's not what I would recommend. Definitely do your own research and see how you feel about what you want in a tent, or what you think might be a good idea, and see if you can borrow friends' tents first, get an idea of what you want before committing money to the situation. So that's a brief overview of the shelters that I've used and how I feel about them. I will definitely continue to use all of those options, and I am looking at adding another tent into the mix at some point, but not yet. Trying not to just keep buying camping gear. So next we'll look at sleep systems, I think. My current sleep system setup's very on the budget side, because as we have previously discussed, I like bargains. First 2 wild camps I did, I used this, which as you can see I've packed away immaculately. seems robust enough for the minute. It's easy to blow up on site. I don't need a pump or anything. It just blows up really easily. It deflates really easily. Doesn't pack away particularly easily, but you can't have everything. You can get a full length version of this for just over 30 quid, I think, and it's obviously a little bit heavier, but not by like a ridiculous amount. So price weight comparison, that's a pretty good option if you're looking for something that doesn't weigh too much and isn't too expensive, but you can sleep on comfortably. My third camp, I used this beastie, which is a OEX Superlight 8. It's just got the OEX brand slapped on it, but Multimat, I think, actually make these. And it's just called the Superlight 8. You can, if you type that in, you'll find various versions of it. None of them particularly expensive. I don't know how available they are at the minute. I did notice they were a bit scarce online recently. Not quite sure why. But anyway, that was what I used for my third camp. Pretty comfy, obviously a lot more bulky than the 4-class mat, as any roll mat is obviously going to take up more space than an inflatable mat, because the inflatable mat's just packed down smaller. So it's just a kind of space weight ratio comparison. Obviously the roll mat weighs a lot less, but you do probably have to put it on top of your bag or below your bag or whatever, and the inflatable mat takes up less space, so, but it does weigh more. So it's just what you personally prefer, really. And in terms of comfort, the inflatable mat is going to be more comfortable for most people. I don't really care either way, so I just use whatever I'm feeling like at the time. On my last two camps, I've just used this, which is a very, very basic foam mat. It's not very thick at all, and it weighs about 90 grams. I think. I've cut it down. This is not the size it was when I found it in the wood. I found it in the woods. We were on a hike in Snake Valley, and the woods were just full of crap. People had just abandoned all of their shit in the woods, basically. There was just loads of campsites that had been left. And I didn't have any bin bags with us, and it was annoying me, and I wanted to clear some of it out. And that roll mat was just something that I felt like I could pick up and take out of the woods. And then I cleaned it up a little bit and just decided I would start using it, because free roll mat, why not? I think it's like a Walmart brand roll mat or some Walmart? A Walmart brand roll mat, I think, after trying to research what the make was. So I don't know exactly how that's ended up in the UK. But anyway, that's my mysterious roll mat that I've been using, and it's been fine. I don't, like I've said, I don't really care too much what I'm sleeping on. As long as I can kind of like move around a little bit, that seems to be how I sleep best. Whether I'm on an inflatable or a roll mat, that doesn't really seem to matter to me. It doesn't affect the sleep I get. As well as the roll mat, I did have this reflective mat that I was just sticking underneath the roll mat for my last two camps, because it was starting to get a little bit chillier. And to be on the safe side, I just thought I'd add an extra layer to reflect some heat back up, and yeah, provide a little bit of extra cushioning from the ground, just to, yeah, make sure I didn't get cold at night, essentially. And that worked really well, and it cost like £5. So that particular sleeping setup, yeah, isn't clocking in at very much money so far. So in total, I think my sleeping mats that I currently own come to under £40 for all of them, which is reasonable. Just shows what you can do if you search around and look for a few bargains. Arguably one of the most important parts of the sleeping system is obviously the sleeping bag, because you're going to be pretty uncomfortable with that one. Again, there's nothing particularly groundbreaking going on here. They're not earth-shatteringly amazing sleeping bags, but they do the job, so it doesn't really matter. The sleeping bag I've used for most of my wild camps so far is this Mountain Warehouse Traveller 50, which is just a 2-season sleeping bag. I'm a very warm sleeper, so I tend to prefer to go with a lighter option as much as possible, just because I get very sweaty at night. This has been a good bag. I've not really had any problems with it. The temperature rating, it says its comfort temp is 14 degrees centigrade to 11. That seemed pretty accurate so far. I haven't really had any problems with it. It's pretty lightweight, and it compacts down really small because it's got a compression strap on it. So yeah, you can squash it down. Doesn't take up too much space in your bag. Yeah, no complaints about that one. It was also only 20 quid on sale because I live in sales, what can I say? The other sleeping bag I have that I haven't actually used much yet, just because I haven't really camped in cold enough weather to feel like it was necessary, is this OEX Fathom 300 EV. It would really help if I looked at the names of things before trying to say them. Fathom EV 300. It's a 3-season sleeping bag. I've used it once up on my first moorland camp on Marjorie Hill because it just happened to be quite chilly that night. So I took this as a precaution to make sure I was warm enough because I wasn't very familiar with the moorland at that point. So this has a comfort temperature of 1 degrees, which, I mean, I've not really used it enough to say whether that's accurate, but it was very warm on the night I used it. Very, very warm, and it went down to about 5 or 6 degrees that night, I think. So yeah, no complaints so far, but I haven't really given it a rigorous test, so I can't really tell you all of the details on that one. It's also not a particularly expensive bag. I think it was a present. My dad got it for me, but he bought it for like £41 from Go Outdoors. I think it's supposed to be like £60 or something, but even so, that's not particularly expensive for a sleeping bag. So yeah, as far as I can tell, it's a decent bag, but I haven't used it enough to confirm. One thing I did also add to my sleep system as it got a little bit colder was just a very generic sleeping bag liner. That meant I could keep using the 2-season sleeping bag, because using the 2-season sleeping bag and this combined was still lighter than taking the 3-season sleeping bag. So it just extended the usage of the 2-season sleeping bag into kind of late summer, early autumn, which I found helpful. Just meant you have to carry slightly less weight, basically. Next thing to move on to is cook systems. We'll talk about stoves first, I think. The one I've used the most is MSR Pocket Rocket 2. Pretty bog standard. I think a lot of people use this and a lot of people like it. That's not really anything revolutionary there. I have used the Trangia on one camp so far because I just wanted to test out using an alcohol stove. It was all right. I think I need to get a better windshield for it, but yeah, it's a robust bit of kit. The fuel isn't alcohol methylated spirit fuel stuff. Words. The methylated spirit isn't as fuel efficient as gas, so that's just something to be aware of. And you do need a pretty good windshield, otherwise you get quite a big flame and it's a little bit scary. The pot support I used for the alcohol stove is it's a super cheap Lixardia, I think, whatever that random Amazon brand is, that costs like £3 or something. So you just set this up. I'll insert a clip. Set this up, put the Trangia burner in it, and then I popped my pot on top of that, and that was simple enough. It offers a bit of wind protection, but not a lot. Cooking pots would be the next thing to talk about, I suppose. I started out with just this very bog standard Van Gogh set. So this served me pretty well for a couple of camps. I have only used it a couple of times because I ended up getting something lighter. It's got loads of space for one person. Like you can get loads of food in there. So if you're a hungry person, then yeah, it was only about 10 quid when I bought it. I think it ranges from 10 to 20 pounds depending on where you get it from. And Van Gogh aren't the only person who have a version of this, so there are plenty of options for this kind of setup. I was cooking my food in that one and then doing hot drinks in that later in the evening, and then obviously when you're cooking your food, that makes a lid for it all to make sure the water heats up quickly, and they've all got nice little rubberized handles on. So yeah, pretty straightforward, pretty cheap and well-performing piece of kit as far as I can tell from my limited usage of it. So I did end up opting for a much more compact and much lighter option than the Van Gogh setup. So this is the Toaks Titanium 750. I probably could have got away with going for a 650, but I just kind of liked the mug shape of this one. You can use it as a mug as well as cooking food in it. It's incredibly lightweight, and this particular version of the model comes with a bail handle. So that's been quite handy for, yeah, getting it off whatever fire you're using without burning your hands. One thing I would say about it is because it's like a tall pot rather than a wide pot, it is a little bit difficult to stir the food in the bottom of it, unfortunately, but it's a minor niggle really. I've really enjoyed using it so far, and I'm very glad I invested in that. It's about 42 quid, so it's not the cheapest thing, but I think it's gonna do me well, and I'm pleased I bought it. Another benefit to it is it literally does fit your average gas canister very snugly inside it, and then I can also get like a cloth, my lighter, and the stove in there, so it's super compact, which is really nice. I've said it's really compact and now the lid won't go on properly. Everything you need for cooking, all in there. I will use the Trangia again, I think, but the stove and gas setup is obviously just the kind of the simplest to use really. It's pretty foolproof, so that's probably what I'm going to default to, and then I'll get the Trangia out if I fancy a change from time to time. Probably should mention that for actually eating on camping trips, I've either just eaten out of the pot or used this plastic bowl, which costs £2. For transporting food, I've just been using these kind of things. This one's been stained a nice orange colour by the food that's been in it, but they've been fine. They're just like sealable plastic wallets, basically. There's no rocket science there, but they've worked really well and they wash fairly easily. I think I just found them on Amazon somewhere. They weren't very expensive. I just typed in like reusable Ziplocs, and that was one of the options that came up. Eating utensils, I was either just using a super cheap pair of just metal knife and fork set from a generic camping store, and then after I'd used that a couple of times I upgraded to this titanium spork, which weighs about 8 grams and wasn't very expensive. I think I got it off ultralightgear.co.uk or something like that. I'll link the websites that I used to buy stuff down in the description. But yeah, that's been fine. I mean, it's a spoon. I don't really know what else to say. My water filtration system is again fairly bog standard. It's just one of these water filters. This isn't a Sawyer. It's just an Amazon like no brand one that I wanted to try out to see if it was, you know, any good, basically, because it was a bit cheaper, but probably just get the Sawyer one, to be honest. It's not really that much more expensive. This has performed fine so far. There's nothing wrong with it, but I think just for the sake of making sure you are getting a product that works and has been used by many people, just get the Sawyer one. My toilet kit, yay! So I just have this very basic, that's mud, not poo, very basic trowel that cost about £2 or something. It's from a gardening site. It's not the lightest, it's also not the heaviest, it's definitely the cheapest. And then I don't take toilet paper with me. I'm a convert to the ways of the bidet while on camping trips, I have to say. You can buy like little lightweight bidets that just screw onto the top of a bottle and you squirt it up there, for want of a better phrase. I just use a bottle because I'm flexible enough to do that, and I have half a flannel with me to help with that, and then I just clean that as soon as I get home, basically. For longer trips I'm gonna have to think of a slightly different system, but just in terms of reducing waste that can potentially get left out there, like, it doesn't matter how good your intentions are, something can slip out your bag, or you might just feel shit that morning and accidentally leave your toilet paper in the heather. Just shit happens. So that's just to reduce waste as much as possible. And I just have some anti-bac in there, because if you're doing anything toilet based in the outdoors, always have anti-bac with you. For brushing my teeth, I just have a bamboo toothbrush and some travel toothpaste. So that's kind of all the main stuff, really. My rucksack, I don't know if that's worth talking about. I might mention it. So the rucksack I've been using is a Berghaus Fast Hike 45, so it's 45 litres. It's not in production anymore. They've stopped making it, which I'm kind of angry about, because it's a really good backpack. It's genuinely a really great backpack. It's really lightweight. It's got loads of pockets for stuff. It's got like detachable bits, so you can make it lighter if you want. There's like a metal frame inside it that you can take out if you don't want that in. And I've really enjoyed using it so far, and it's made of waterproof fabric, so you don't necessarily need a backpack protector on it either. But yeah, they don't make it anymore. I managed to get end of the line one on some random website, and I only paid, I think it was about £46 for it. So it wasn't very expensive to get hold of, but yeah, sad. What are you doing, Berghaus? It's a very good backpack. Why have you stopped making it? Mistakes that I've made have been quite limited, actually. My first camp, my tarp and bivvy setup was a bit of a mess, but it didn't really matter because the weather was really good. So I didn't really need the tarp. I could have just bivvied it. On other camps, I've sort of made minor errors, like not keeping an eye on my food while it's cooking and it's burnt to the bottom or whatever. On the camp I did that was just the bivvy, I made a very poor selection of campsite and picked some slightly slopey ground, so I had a pretty uncomfortable night because of that. Should have spent a bit more time looking for a flatter spot. Other than just sort of minor niggles, there's not really a whole lot that went wrong on any of my camps. I do a lot of hiking, so all my navigation is pretty good. I always take a map and a compass out with me. Don't rely on your phone. And I was taking this tiny little power bank with me, and I've now upgraded to something much bigger, so that when I go on longer trips, I don't have to worry about my tiny little power bank running out. I would definitely recommend having a power bank so that you can make sure your phone is charged, so you can contact someone in an emergency. And just for my sake, it helps my partner know where I am and that I'm okay if I can just message him to be like, I've arrived, or I'm on my way back now, kind of thing. It's just helpful for him. Other than stuff like that, there's not really been anything that's gone particularly wrong on any of the camps so far. And yeah, they've all been very enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to doing more once we're allowed to. I realise some people are going out and camping. Just because of my foot injury at the minute, I'm not risking hiking too much because the job I have right now is quite physical, so I'm trying not to move during the days, and then it just means that the risk of injury at work is much less because I do have to be on my feet all shift at work. It is a minor foot injury. I just need to basically lay off any impact, so walking around a bit is okay, but I just don't want to push it, basically. I'm going to leave it till probably after Christmas before I start doing any serious hiking again. And I'm also pretty interested in sticking to the rules at the minute. I don't really want to do unnecessary journeys if I don't have to. I don't want to potentially put stress on any emergency services who are already under a lot of pressure. So that's another reason I don't want to go hiking or camping right now, because things can go wrong out there, and it's not fair on the ambulance services, the man and rescue, if they're having to chase extra problems right now with everything going on. That's just my personal opinion. Other people may feel differently, and that's fine. I hope that very whistle-stop overview of the stuff that I've used has been useful in some way. Feel free to tell me what I'm doing wrong or things that I can do better. always welcome constructive criticism, so feel free to leave stuff in the comments. If you've watched all the way to the end, thank you very much. If you're new here, then feel free to subscribe and yeah, catch up with other outdoorsy stuff that goes on in the future when I'm back to running and hiking, which I'm really hoping is going to be in the not too distant future. In the meantime, other content that I might think about doing is I might look at, yeah, I might do some rehab stuff on getting my foot better so that I can run and hike as soon as possible. We might look into some of that. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.